This time on Legacy 4x4, we're gonna get off our asses and finish up the 1939 Chevy Rat Rod Sedan 4x4 buggy monster. We got a lot left to do, but we're gonna knock it all out in one video. Eventually, whenever I get up. Alright, so we've obviously come a long way. We've touched basically every nut and bolt on this build, but we got one short list left, and let's just go through it right away. We gotta do the clutch, we gotta bleed the clutch, we have to bleed the brakes, those are all installed, showing you second. Install the drive shaft, we have to realign the drivetrain, that's a big one, I'll explain that. Also, when I'm going on the walk around before we start this, I need to make a new transmission crossmember as well as a front engine crossmember. They have to add for structure. Gusset the pan hard in the back, tune the carb, and most likely replace the sensors on this 20-year-old 5.3. So let's get around to what's left. Like I said, the brakes are all installed. I had a video on it, but I thought it was boring, so I took them off. You can see it's just hard lines, replace the calipers and the pads, added 3-foot soft lines going to the front engine on the front side. For the rear, same thing, except it's a hard line over the axle, and then one 3-foot extension going to the rear axle. You guys probably also haven't seen these Fox 2.5 coilovers I bought used and put on them to fix my panhard situation. That way I actually have enough stiffness and ride to the back of the 39. I thought it wasn't gonna be as heavy as it turned out to be, so I was gonna run those Fox air shocks, but it's too heavy, so Fox 2.5s, added some mounts, and then I added a nice simple bump stop for that panhard just so it never hits that top mount. We got plenty of work to do, so let's go ahead and start knocking out this list. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it'll do the trick. This is the clutch slave cylinder mount. It made it out of old 2x4 from, you guessed it, the scrap bin. And yeah, that's for a bolt hole. That's a stud, or a very small part of a stud to go into a capture on the bell housing. That way it doesn't shake around with just one bolt. Let's go test fit it so I can show you what I mean by what this actually does. So if you guys can see, right there, we got the clutch fork and we got that bolt sticking out of the bell housing. What this is gonna do is, go in much like this, rest in place, and then this flat plate is gonna bolt to the slave cylinder, and yeah, that's gonna go in the clutch fork. So, all right, so took a day waiting for parts because I had to get a better fitting for the clutch master, but there it is, all installed. I went ahead and threw a gusset on top of that mount. That way it's extra strong, has zero flex to it. And if I can reach the clutch pedal, I can barely reach it, but I'm moving it like an inch up there. So it's got the full inch of clearance of travel though. That system's done. Let's move on to the next thing. So the next thing on my list was drive shafts. Those are already made and installed. I'll show you in a second. So I think we're gonna move on to realigning the drivetrain, because that's going to be not a fun project, but it needs to be done. So, and then cross members next. So yeah, let's talk through what realigning the drivetrain means, because yeah, it's kind of a weird situation I got myself in. But yeah, so now we're underneath the 39. You can see the 5.3, the 465, and the 205s all lined up, and we got drive shafts hanging. These are single cardan shafts. I didn't want to go double cardan. That's why the pinion angles are the way they are. That's a custom drive shaft, pay like 160 bucks from it. It's all balanced and, measured to fit right at that, but shaft of 205. Very cheap, but gets the job done. Came with U-joints and everything installed. Pretty awesome. The front drive shaft is from the CJ5 rock crawler. It's got like 18 inches of shaft play in it. It's super nice and it's really beefy. It's going to really make the application here perfect, because it'll allow it to fit and also travel. So that's huge. All I did to make this work was, new U-joints, but I had to buy the MP205 flange yoke to go to the single cardan U-joint, and that was Not cheap, that's like $50 for a piece of steel. But that flange yoke also is a 1350 U-joint, so I had to buy a 1350 to 1310 U-joint, which is up there, and I'm running 1310 at the pinion. So that's what the drive shafts are. They're, like I said, I already put them together. It's not really worth showing. It's just a bunch of snapping in the U-joints and trying to make everything line up. But there's a problem, and you guys probably can't tell with this angle, but this rear single cardan shaft has terrible bind and won't even connect the pinion due to the angle of the frame. I know, it's such a weird thing to say, the angle of the frame, what does that matter? It's because I have solid mounted motor mounts up front, and I made those because they're really easy, right? It's just 2x4 welded together. But I drew you guys a really nicely drawn picture so it can help you guys understand what the issue is. And this is her right here. So originally when I had the air shocks on it, I designed it and welded everything in place to where the frame was level with the air shocks ride height, right? And the air shocks, say those are the air shocks, they sat right there. This black box is the drivetrain, and this was like at a downward slope of about 3 degrees, right where it needs to be, like by design, the drivetrain was compared to the frame. But I put those big beefy coilovers on, and those coilovers lifted the rear up and gave it this massive amount of rake, which I really like. The rake is cool, right? It might not be great for off-roading because of top heaviness and everything else, but it's really cool. So I want to keep that rake with the coilovers, right? But now my drivetrain is like pointing up -5 degrees the other direction, right? And that is not the answer, because that single cardan shaft doesn't have enough flex in one U-joint to reach the pinion. The front doesn't as well. So that's a no-go, right? But since I want to keep the rake, I'm just gonna keep running the coilovers and keep that rake in the frame, but I have to cut those motor mounts and angle them down a little bit and then fish plate the motor mounts and make them beefy again in order to fit those cardan shafts, as well as keep that rake. And so like obviously these angles are over exaggerated, but that's that's what's happening. That's what I need to fix. So I'm about to have a good time cutting these solid motor mounts at the very tips up there and fish planing them, and hopefully not ruining everything in the process. So that's why picker's gonna be on one end, floor jack's gonna be on the other end. I'm gonna try and get the angle of the dangle perfect, and then try and figure out something to do with those motor mounts. Actually, this maneuver paid off really easy. I already dropped down the rear about 3 inches, giving it the proper, angle of the dangle. So we're looking pretty up there. Both the drive shafts fit, so didn't take long at all. Just gonna bolt those in and redo the motor mounts up there, fish plate them, make a trans mount, and add an engine mount up front, and we're gonna call it good to go. Alright, so in case you're wondering how I'm making this trans cross member, you just saw me making those two. That's a piece of angle iron with some gussets on the side. That's a 2x2 capped. Now I'm going to guess and check and make the supports that are going to go from the end of that cap all the way up to the angle. And yeah, that's how the transmission cross member is coming along. There's no science to it. I'm just doing it live, as the kids are saying. So I'm gonna finish that up real quick. Hopefully I get it right in one of the first few times. All right, you heard my little giggle there. There's everything tacked in. Going to final weld everything that's touching, chop off all the excess, cap everything I need to cap, and cross member will be done. So let's get to it. Ran out of MIG gas just in time to finish the final weld on the cross member. There it is. That's the back side of it. I know it's not symmetrical, but all those welds are gusseted. Everything is fully welded, and it'll hold. I'm not too worried about it not holding. That's how it looks. We're gonna go ahead and throw it in the car. Once that's in there, we can move on to finishing this amazing, fun, super great project up. No. All right, So 39's on the trailer because I was gonna go get it tuned and make it run properly from my favorite tuning shop. And as it turns out, I have a leak in my intake manifold. So I knew it wasn't running right, and I just figured I'd take it there and see what the guy would say, see if you could just fix it, get it running right. I thought it was a fuel pressure problem, but it turns out it has good enough fuel pressure because I have that massive pump in there, so you know, it should have fuel pressure. But it turns out it was actually a leak in the intake gasket manifold that I didn't check because I'm too inept to check, aka I literally didn't even think about it. I didn't think that there could be a leak because there's all new gasket and everything, but the passenger bank is all leaking. So went ahead and ordered new gaskets, new bolts for the intake. Gonna put that in, should get it running and idling by myself since I know it has fuel pressure, and then we'll be able to go get it tuned, and it'll be roadworthy. So it does run. I'm gonna show you guys it running and everything else. Final product is here. Everything's installed, motor mounts are in. Here's how that trans cross member came out. Super spiffy, love the way it looks. Yep, it's all done. It just needs to be tuned, which now means waiting on intake stuff. So I will consider this one done. The intake I'm just gonna do by myself. And next time you guys see this, it'll be running and driving on the road, not just on the trailer. All right,